I want to just take a quick minute to introduce some of my colleagues here at Shepherd Community. Tim Sturgis is our Chief Administrative Officer. He's been here about 5 weeks, so he knows everything, and we appreciate him coming to help run the business side of things. Andrew Green is our Assistant Executive Director and helps us with a lot of our external relationships and with Minnie Hartman. Becca Kidd is our Chief Program Officer. Colton is our Director of Development. Tim Street is our Assistant Director and Resident Professor, finishing up his PhD, and has been a good partner with us for so many years. Alan Sutherland is our Chief Pipeline Officer. Phil Edwards is our Chief Engagement, and you'll hear from him a little bit into this about volunteers. And so we appreciate your time this morning, and we're trying something different. We want to talk about the 6 external focuses, and we want to hear from some experts. And so today I'm going to start off with a good friend, someone that we know very well, Rex Fisher. What's your title, Rex?
That is a great question. Let's go with realtor and co-owner at Properties.
Formerly Platt Collective, formerly
Nottingham Realty Group.
Yeah. So
we'll keep you posted on the next one.
Yeah. So Rex served here on our team for years at Shepherd Community and is a leader in the community in helping with real estate. And so I just want to ask Rex a little bit, as we talk about housing, this is one of our 6 external focuses. Rex, what's the challenge today here in our neighborhood, in the city, around housing?
It's certainly a multifaceted challenge, and it comes down and relates to people differently depending on how they're approaching it. So for builders, cost around materials and workers and availability of materials and workers. So we're seeing, a number of projects that are getting delayed because we can't get things like siding or windows, soffits. There are some huge challenges with, lumber and joists, both and those materials have gone up. I mean, some of those have gone up over 100% since, the start of COVID. And then just the delays. I mean, we've seen projects that have been delayed up to 4 or 5 months based on the availability of the product. But as that goes then out to the middle class, they're seeing lower inventory than we've had in this city within our lifetimes. Huge increase in competition. That is due to more people moving to central Indiana in Indianapolis than I've seen in my time in real estate, certainly. And then we have more money coming into this city from a place of cash buyers who have made money in other cities and are used to how this city is moving within housing that we've never seen, but they've seen in other cities and are taking advantage of that, which is making it harder for homes to be purchased within the loan terms that we're often faced with. We're seeing a lot of properties that are being sold over list price. We see increasing need with that for people to come and cover appraisal gaps. And, then for those who are neighbors who have grown up in generational poverty, they have all of those challenges as well. But we also see, the loan process being tremendously overwhelming for them. Often the lack of established credit is a tremendous challenge. Not enough cash reserves, and then credit scores that are below 580. Those have always been challenges, but now with the reduction of inventory, with the increased competition, and often the need to cover gaps between purchase price and appraised value with a lender, our neighbors are even more challenged than they've ever been.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're seeing, the rule of thumb is that 30% of your income should go to housing. And in just one situation that I know of in the last 2 weeks, it's closer to 60% because of the rising prices. We're seeing quite a bit where someone's home is getting sold out from under them that they've rented for some time because of the speculative buying that's going on. We see Zillow has been buying homes with an algorithm that was faulty, and they've been overpaying, and they've lost millions, over $400 million, I believe is what I read.
Mm-hmm.
And what trends do you see coming for the next 5 years that's going to impact our families?
Yes. So we are certainly seeing, we're going to continue to see an increase in demand. Indianapolis and the surrounding area has more business coming to it. We're really seeing, and COVID certainly sped this up, but more people relocating from other cities to Indianapolis who are used to paying much more for housing than our residents have. In 2016, our average days on market for a listed property was around 36. In 2021, that number is 5. It can't go much lower. That is extremely aggressive. Now, interest rates may tick up, and that may have somewhat of an impact, but I'll tell you, a lot of what is driving that, along with people relocating here, again, is a pretty heavy investor network that is used to taking losses month to month and playing the long game. And I don't think that's going to stop. Indianapolis is a city where the cost of living compared to other cities in, say, the top 20 markets is one of the lowest. I think Memphis is the only one that is cheaper than we are. The difference is, last I checked, Indianapolis's GDP ranks about 14th and maybe 15th, and Memphis sits at 37. Our city is one that, compared to other cities with that kind of economic engine and that kind of economic production, is comparatively out of whack. And so you could say that it is getting more in line with the other urban markets. But that is a trend that we're going to see housing prices go up. We are going to see an annual loss of inventory because we can't build them or renovate them fast enough. In 2016, in this market, we had about 21,000 actively listed homes. This year, we've seen about 11,000 actively listed homes at any given moment. That's a huge reduction. That is a monumental loss. We are also going to see, with that, right, you lose supply, you have greater competition. That means housing prices continue to go up. So 2016, 5 years ago, our median home price was about $155. In 2020, that was $205, so a $50,000 jump. So far in 2021, the median home price is sitting about $235. So a $30,000 jump on median home price in the last year compared to a $50 in the 4 years before that. I think you're going to continue to see home prices go up at a rate we are not used to. You're talking 18 to 20% year over year median growth in home prices, where we still can't catch up with the demand, and more people are moving from other markets who are just used to paying so much more. So those are some of the trends we're going to continue to see happening. The other thing I'd say is, normally we have an annual cycle in that home price fluctuation where home prices peak in the second quarter when everybody's buying and selling, and then it tapers off as you hit the third quarter and certainly in the fourth. In 5 years ago, that was, you would see at the start of the year, it would come up and then it would peak in the second quarter and then it would return, and it would sit maybe, I understand, 5-10% above where it was at the start of the year. Now what we're seeing is that at the start of the year, that peak ramps up much more aggressively. It trends down very, very little, plateaus, and then sets to go again. And I can send you over the graph of that for the last 10 years. And you're welcome to share that out with anybody who's interested in watching the video and whatnot, because it is a sobering visual representation of how aggressively prices are going up and how affected the annual price fluctuation, has just, lessened within this market.
One last question for you, Rex, and then if you can stick around after we have our two folks speak, we're going to have some time for Q&A. Dave, you're on deck. Dave Bennett, who's helping Shepherd in our strategy. Rex, what does Shepherd need to be doing?
I think the way that Shepherd and the stakeholders within the organization can help is, let's take it from this angle. You already know that the process of home ownership and even finding good, affordable rentals is challenging. The reality for many of our neighbors is that there is no margin for the process of finding and acquiring a good home. I have this equation that's written across the top of my whiteboard in my office, and it's an emotional capacity equation that I use to just keep myself in check. But it relates to this situation that our neighbors are faced with, and that is financial capacity times time capacity times relationship capacity equals our emotional capacity to take on any opportunity or challenge in front of us. And the reason that those pieces are multipliers of each other is the minute that financial capacity is diminished, stress shoots through the roof and there is no margin to look out on the horizon. And the minute that we are overstretched on time and just running from thing to thing to thing and reacting in the trenches, there's no margin to look out and move appropriately. And the minute that relationship is broken or it's not there, or we don't have the support from a community that's coming around us to clear the road and model the way, right? And relationship is broken and there is stress within that to those who we value most. Again, until that is repaired or restored or grown, we do not have the margin to move well. And so when we have things within this market and within this challenge, such as there's no money to cover an appraisal gap or handle maintenance and repairs, and there's no time to do what's needed because you're just trying to get to the next basic need for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones in the community. You need someone to stand in the gap in that relationship bucket, to come alongside and to create the margin, okay, to get things out of the time bucket, to bring financial margin. Some of the ways that we're doing this ourselves with some of our neighbors, that may be financing a home and setting up a payment plan where that individual is able to get that home now, as opposed to just stay in the fight over and over, and and effectively get to a place where they have the margin to take over that mortgage themselves. All right. That is a challenge. You're not going to make you're not going to make peak returns in that strategy, but those are the kind of things, and that is the kind of gap that our neighbors need us to step into in order to help them acquire, maintain, preserve the housing that's needed. And otherwise, we run a real risk of not having a affordable housing problem, a low to moderate income housing problem. You see this in many cities around the world, that poverty gets pushed to the outskirts of the city. And that, that's a long play. We're not there now. But certainly if we don't figure out some of these challenges, I think the model is there historically, globally, that's where we tend to see this go.
Rex, thank you. We don't want displacement, and the reality is there's fewer and fewer places for our neighbors to go.
That's right.
And so it becomes a very difficult task for our team to try to find that. Thank you, Rex.
Appreciate My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For our community. David Bennett. David is a developer who is working alongside Shepherd on some of our strategies. David, you've heard Rex. We had a big call some time ago with several folks speaking into this for us. David, what we walked the neighborhood the other day. What are you seeing, and what do you see as the strategy for Shepherd community for us to be focused on in 2022?
Well, first, let me just say I thought that Rex's comments were spot on. The strategy needs to become standing in the gap so that gentrification does not occur. Jay facilitated a meeting with Deputy Mayor Bennett the other day that we sat in on, and we talked a little bit about the gentrification that was occurring on the east side, but closer to the downtown area. And there's a reason for that. I mean, developers will build product that realizes profit for them. And the profit is often found in the higher income segments. And so the developers will naturally gravitate toward building product that brings in or meets that level of demand so that their profits or their margins are enhanced. The result is, on the conditions on the ground, that the gentrification occurs. And I think that's exactly what it sounds like you're trying to avoid, and we need to avoid. But in order to do that, someone has to come and stand in that gap, or multiple parties need to do so and work together at it. In 2022, my suggestion to you would be to develop a strategy, an acquisition strategy within your area of focus that allows Shepherd to gain control of sites, existing homes, vacant parcels, underutilized real estate, and pool those until there's a sufficient critical mass of properties that you can put together an economically viable development. And when I say economically viable, I mean sources and uses are matching, that allows you to rent or sell to households that make up your area of focus and their income levels. I haven't done any specific research, Jay, but I would submit to you that that's probably households that are earning between 30 and 60% of the Indianapolis MSA area median income. So that would be my suggestion for 22, is to get started on that land acquisition with a plan in place.
So David and I and Mark Musselman were walking around, and so I'll use a legal term. It's called the Penumbra. We would call it the shadow. The shadow of the law is what it's used in legal arena. We want to focus on the penumbra around our property. And Deputy Mayor Jeff Bennett said it's really a block by block strategy. If we can secure 2 or 3 houses on a block, you can change a block and have a very positive impact. And so if we look at just those blocks just around our property, and I think one of the things we've discussed and have had some conversations with Renew Indy is to find empty lots that are in that area and first secure those. And to look in 2022 to try and secure 3 to 5 of those, but also to look just contiguous to us and say, okay, what properties can we have? And David brings up a really good point. Not every one of our neighbors can buy. And so we need good landlords, and we need partnerships with good landlords. And oh, by the way, Shepherd is not going to be a landlord because that's not who we are. We can do the wraparound, but we want to have partnerships, and we want to help secure properties that can be managed by others, but we can provide the supportive services. An example is we received a donation of a property just five houses down from us. It was a double. It was a huge double, 1,600 square foot on each side. And we renovated one side and put a family in there who was putting their life back together. And over 2 years, we worked with them to repair their credit and improve their scores so that they were able to ultimately purchase that building, that house from us, and put another Shepherd family in the other side, who, by the way, their rent's paying the mortgage. And that's the idea that we want to move forward on, is helping those who can over time build it up. We'd like to build up a trust fund. We've set a goal of about 1.5 to try to secure some of these properties, and then have someone who can manage it for us and help our families get in. And maybe it's going to take maybe 2 to 3 years for some of our families to be able to get things in order so that they could purchase it from us. And we want to be there to help them. Tomorrow at 4:30, we're talking about our jobs pipeline. We're trying to move folks along the ABC, the A job, better job, career. That's the uniqueness about our conversation and our 6 external focuses, is they're all interwoven. 1 o'clock today, we talk about hunger. If we want to eliminate hunger, it really is predicated on someone having a good job, them having access to a good home. David, if someone says, how can I help? What would you say to them?
Good question, Jay. I think you're going to need funding from a variety of sources as a starting point. So that is one. I think you're going to need some help on the land acquisition side in reaching out to understand what properties could be available or might be available or are available, making contact with the ownership of those parcels or projects to get in contact and understand what it would take to buy out their interests. I mean, many of the investors, I think, as Rex indicated, are coming from elsewhere. And so they may or may not have even seen the properties that you're interested in acquiring. So I think that's going to take some real effort to make those contacts and get those properties under control. Again, I think you're going to need a critical mass of properties in order to put your sources and uses together in an economically viable fashion. And what I mean by that is, it's if you build 8 to 10 apartments or homes, that's one set of costs and one set of operating expenses if it's a rental community. And you always have fixed operating expenses that are best spread over a larger number of apartments or rentals, for lack of a better term. And so in order to realize some economies of scale, oftentimes you need to build more than 8 to 10 units. Maybe you need to be building 50, 60, or 100. But getting to that point is going to take a lot of effort and a lot of balance between now and then. I think you're going to have some understanding donors that will be patient with you over a probably 2 to 5 year horizon in order to get critical masses of property into that development pipeline. But you are right. When you can, if you have a block that has 15 homes on it, Jay, and you can get 3 or 4 of them, you can start moving the needle in the other direction from being a location of disinvestment to one that is encouraging additional investment. So I guess funding is key at this point, Jay, but also the work on the ground to get the properties under control.
And one of the other things that Shepherd has been doing even yet this year, and we're already working on a huge plan for 2023, where we'll be bringing in maybe as many as 1,000 volunteers to repair homes. But we've repaired homes this past year. A lot of times Health and Hospital will contact us and say, we have a senior adult whose home needs repairs. And we've been able to make those repairs for them so that they can stay in their home. But to continue to focus here on this neighborhood, primarily the 46201 and 46203, but making the necessary repairs so that they don't get cited, and trying to develop relationships with landlords. There are very good landlords in our neighborhood, and we want to have a partnership with them so that they can stay profitable and can provide great housing for our families who need to rent. And then I'm going to let you know that here in just a couple minutes, we'll be taking questions. I'm going to ask Rex a question. Rex, what is the percentage in the 01 of rentals versus home ownership?
Boy, that is a great question. And I'm going to have to go dig into that to get you good data. What I can tell you that is a tangential surprise to me. I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but our rental vacancy in this city right now is the lowest I've ever seen it. And a lot of that is predicated in the inability for more people to acquire homes. And there are first-time home buyers that are putting in 5, 6, 10 offers on homes and not getting them, right? And so what do? They re-up their lease and continue on. In October, we had by far, hands down, never seen anything like this before. We set our this was our largest rental fill month as a percentage of our overall rental portfolio of any October we've ever had, by a factor of 2. People are still trying to find decent rentals in this city this late in the game. Usually the rental market, by the time you hit October, it's crickets. And it's very, very quiet. And we are just not seeing that right now. But let me see if I can dig up that ratio for you. I'll send it over to you on rent versus own.
I think in 01, it's like 60 to 70%. It's astronomically high for a variety of reasons. And so that's why we want to do that. Folks, I want to give you an opportunity. If you have a question, there's the chat box. If you have a question that you would like to present, this is the opportunity for you to shoot that by us.
I'll start. I got a question for David and or Rex. As it relates to Shepherd and our role in this arena, so to speak, in terms of the homes and the neighborhood and things like that. You mentioned investment companies from other places swooping in, buying property, sometimes sight unseen. Is there a strategy to combat that? And would it be worth reaching out to some who are making a play in our neighborhood and kind of presenting Shepherd and our mission to hopefully find a heartstring somewhere that we could, maybe prevent or refocus some of their strategy?
Rex, do you want to take that question first, or do you want me to chime in?
Feel more than free to. I guess the only thing that I would say there is I actually believe that we need diversified neighborhoods. So I wouldn't say that all gentrification is bad. I think some of the greatest strength that I see in my own neighborhood is that there are people who have lived here for 4 generations. And I've actually learned personally a ton from my neighbors who've been in generational poverty in ways I never could have assumed, right? And there's benefit there is benefit to that. I think if you are going to approach an investor in state or out of state, you will get some movement on a play for the betterment of the community and the neighbors that need it. You will get more movement by pairing that with creative ways that you can that the spreadsheet works just as well, if not better. And I do think that there are ways to do that if you get to someone who is willing to play the long game. Some of the biggest challenges that we have with that money coming in are those that buy up properties and just sit on them. Mm-hmm. Right? They just hold them and they're locked up, and the mailing address is a PO box, in some other state. You don't even know how to get to them to start the conversation. Right? That is a huge challenge. And I understand the mentality. You buy a boarded up property for $50,000 and want to sit on it for 3 years and turn that around for 6 figures, right? Like, outside of the moral and ethical implications of that for a community, right? On a spreadsheet, those numbers look pretty good. But that's not the only way to hit those numbers. And I think that's where we can win, is pairing both. This is a way to actually positively impact this community and still get the return you're looking for.
Rex is right. I'm sorry. I just want to clarify some of my remarks earlier. Some gentrification is certainly good, because that is what is creating the investment in the communities to help turn around the momentum of the community from in a direction of disinvestment to one of encouraging additional investment. Total gentrification is not good. And that's really what I think we're looking to buy. I would certainly never underestimate the power of our God to move in the hearts of people, including investors from around the world. My general approach in real estate development is to be that change maker within our own control. And so when I have that as a basis, and I understand that a variety of sources of funding are going to be required in order to build good quality, affordable housing, whether it be for sale or for rent, and be able to sell those or rent those at levels that are affordable to the households that we are targeting, it's going to be very difficult to realize all those funds from an investor or investors from elsewhere. You're going to need to work with community development block grants and home funds that are designated by HUD, and perhaps a private activity bond issue, and maybe even TIF districts and low-income housing tax credits. And all of those funding sources are going to be essential to meeting what I think will become the ultimate goal of Shepherd in continuing to impact its neighbors in the area of housing. Someone's going to have to be that driver to assemble those sources of funds. It's almost like putting together a puzzle, and there's going to have to be a change maker within the collective group of Shepherd that is the one that is making that puzzle, that is assembling those pieces and putting them into the place, so that at the end of the day, you have a project that meets its missions and works economically.
I see the question here: does Shepherd have resources or partner resources for families that are displaced and have an immediate need? It is incredibly difficult when someone has an immediate need. And so we have limited resources where we can help. We keep communicating to our families, let us know. We're very thankful to be partnering with the John Bonner Center, who coordinates the Indie Rents program for the city. And we're going to be a site. We just worked out that agreement last week, where we'll be able, and we're in the process of hiring a couple of folks who will work with our neighbors to get them signed up if they're renting, to keep them in place and get support if they are going through a tough time. We're also working to become a site for the utility assistance, because the best strategy for those who are renting is keep them in place. Rex, you mentioned that. Just keep them where they're at, and then develop a strategy to find places. But we don't want to be in these emergency situations, because I've been here 26 years. I have never seen it so difficult to find an option if a family is looking for a place today. And so one of the things that we need is contacts within landlords who own places in our neighborhood who would be willing to work with us. And we can help that landlord make it work and keep those families in place. Well, I'm going to ask my colleague Phil Edwards to just share quickly a couple ideas of how folks could volunteer and help us with housing.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Hello, everyone. So I get excited about this area of stable housing for our neighbors, because we've seen some progress. And while you've heard a number of the challenges and concerns that we have for how the development in our city of people paying unbelievable prices for housing, how it will affect the poor, and in our desire to help our neighbors break the cycle of poverty, we have seen a number of volunteers to come and serve, but we need more volunteers to help in this regard. We're looking for electricians, plumbers, carpenters, or any individuals who've done home maintenance before. This makes a major difference with our neighbors who can't afford sometimes to buy the material, but they definitely don't know how to make the repairs. And we need folks to empower our neighbors in learning how to repair their homes, to do some home maintenance. That is a very important tool in empowering neighbors. The third thing that we've seen work so well is that there have been groups of individuals who come to do landscape around the properties, as well as doing some major painting. So for any of you who are interested, or you know folks who are interested in partnering with our neighbors in this regard, would love to hear from you. You can reach out to Donna Alexander here at our center, and I'll just give that number to you very quickly here. That's 317-375-0203, or you can reach out to her via email. That's Donna A. at shepherdcommunity.org. Donna A. as an apple at shepherdcommunity.org. And we really appreciate your interest in helping Shepherd, helping our neighbors break the cycle of poverty in the area of stable housing.
Thank you, Phil. And if someone was to say, I'm interested in helping financially, I think you've heard us. Someone may be interested in helping us invest in a trust fund. Somebody may want to donate and help us in securing emergency relief for our families. There's a variety of ways, and we're going to be aggressive, yet also making sure we stick to our plan and not get too far away for us. So those are some opportunities. I see another question here about Habitat has a job for construction. We don't. And we have partnered with both Habitat as well as the Fuller Center in some of the projects we've done. And this is a good point, that Shepherd isn't going this alone. We're working with others and partnering with others. Just a few years ago, we did the 46201 project with multiple groups that resulted in 5 new homes being built in our neighborhood and 120 homes being repaired. And we're not going to go it alone. We're going to do it together. We appreciate everyone's time this morning. And if you have further questions, you can reach out to us. Thank you, Rex and David, for your time this morning. We appreciate At Properties of Central Indiana for sponsoring this morning's Zoom. And But thank you all for taking time out of your day to hear about this. Again, if you have further questions, reach out. We hope you have a great day, and thank you. And we're on the road to recovery. Won't you join us?